The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Leadership Podcast. It is yet again another edition of the Big Issue. I remain your regular host, George Agba. With me here in the studio are our in-house analyst, Chief of Highway, Silas Eze, and Sunday Isu. Welcome to the studio. Well, for you out there, participation in the big issue is all encompassing, meaning that you, our viewer, is also part of the discussion. So as we go ahead, don't forget to send in your comments and your contribution to the discourse, because your comments also contribute in setting the base for robust discussion on issues as we take them. And of course, don't relent to keep the flag flying, because we must speak truth to power and set the agenda for nation building. Well, for the big issue of today, it's a simple question. What has age got to do with it? After former military president Ibrahim Babangida raised issues concerning the age of the next president of Nigeria, it has become a discourse in the political cycle in the country, where most people are beginning to consider the age of who the next president should be. And of course, IBB's stance on the qualities of the next president has become some sort of an agenda setting. And of course, most political analysts and even the media are now presenting persons they feel are edible, competent enough, and within the age limit of 60s to become our next president. And of course, Babangida had an interview with Arise TV, averred that politicians who are within the age of 60 should be the focus of Nigeria as potential presidential or vice presidential candidates in 2023. According to him, people with this age limit should have deep knowledge of the economy, must have contacts across the nation, and must have been traversing the geopolitical zones, marketing their acceptability, capacity, and making friends. And of course, for those of you who were not opportune to follow IBB's interview, let's take him in his words. If you get a good leadership that links with the people and tries to talk with the people, not talking on top of the people, then we will be okay. I have started visualizing a good Nigerian leader. That is a person who travels across the country and as a friend, virtually everywhere he travels to, and he knows at least one person that he can communicate with. That is a person who is very vast in the economy and is also a good politician, who should be able to talk to Nigerians and so on. I've seen one or two or three of such person already in his 60s. Most Nigerians interpreted IBB's stance to mean he ruled out prominent politicians in the country, like former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and former Lagos State Governor and APC leader Bola Tinubu from the 2023 presidential race, because they would have been in their 70s by the time the next election will take place. Well, the question now on the big issue is, what has age got to do with it? Should age be a determining factor for who the next president of Nigeria should be? Silas, I think you just set the ball rolling here. What do you think?
Yeah. I'll say that this question is very, very germane at the moment. What has age got with it to do with it? In the African setting, we always attribute age, you know, associated with wisdom, experience, and all those good qualities of leadership. Our African societies, some of them are still run on gerontocracy. The oldest man rules, like in my village, the oldest man is the ruler, and all whatnot. It's a kind of ruler. You still have the chief too, but the oldest man also has his own rulers. He has his own role as a leader. But coming to national leadership, uh, I'm sure that IPP is somebody that when he says something, we should give it, a thought because he doesn't talk nonsense. Somebody is a profound mind, and when he speaks, his intelligence and experience, and then something that can even buttress what he was trying to say. He was when the president himself assumed office, President Buhari, and said he made allusion that he would have liked to have arrived at the presidency earlier than now. Okay, right now he doesn't have the energy and all the whatnot, all the energy to for the task ahead. Okay, well, be those at the mayor, I would not buy or Bangida's uh, stance or had in total. I will not take on. I think beyond age, um, experience, competence should be the number one thing to look at. If you- Competence, those who can understand issues, and you can have a young person of 60 or this. It's not a young person, but middle-aged person on the other side, and they don't understand all issues. Okay, you can have a younger person who is more at home with issues of governance, leadership, managing agile capacity, like he said. It doesn't have to be someone in his 60s that can do all these things yourself. If you look around the world, you find that the US, they seem to know more about us, about leadership and this and that. And in the last two times, they've elected people in their 70s. Is it that they don't know that, they should, bring people from 30s and 40s? At the time, if other European countries were electing younger people in Canada, Australia, and even in France, where they took a 39-year-old, um, what's his name again? Macron. But incidentally, went and married somebody in her 60s. Some kind of give her give him kind of balancing, you know, his youth with the experience. Okay, so I think the issue should be competence. More about competence than about age.
Yes, Chibuzo, you listening to silence. Silence has hit the nail on the head. And of course, why this issue is popping up on the big issue is that where IBB would have said these things in an interview here, granted Arise Television, and one would have expected that it ends there. Political class, political pundits, even the media, they have started using it as a springing board to set their agenda. Like a national daily yesterday published names and persons, including their picture of potential presidential candidates for the 2023 presidential race. And what was curious about that particular report, which happened to be the lead story of that national daily, is that truly like what IBB said, they excluded politicians like former President Atiku Abubakar, excluded politicians like former Lagos State Governor and the current leader of the APC, Ahmed Bola Tinubu. And that shows you, just like Silas said, that IBB is not somebody anybody should take lightly whenever he comes out to speak on national issue. Does age really matter? Who a good leader should be?
I'm not a leadership expert. Let me just start from there because some of the things I'm going to say here.
But if you're not a leadership expert, you're a political expert.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's been a long debate as to which should take prominence, which should be regarded as important than over the other, experience or vibrancy. Um, of course, competence is central to both. You know, competence is central. Now, I'm talking on the assumption that both of them are competent. Now, what age gives is a measure of experience outside, you know, competence, a measure of experience and a high network and net worth. But with youth, there's a certain vibrancy and um, a, a daring spirit to push, you know, and become more like a revolutionary figure. However, I do think that the the entity or the country in question will determine the kind of leader they want per time. By that I mean, if you look at the United States, for instance, when Obama was coming in, Obama was far younger than Biden.
I think he was in his 40s.
Yes, he came at a time the US had a very terrible economic crisis. In fact, it was a major ripple effect globally. You know, the country was in a mess. It was clear what they need, and not just the financial crisis thing that they had. They also had the crisis of race. The race crisis was there. It has always been there, but at some level it was assuming a different spectrum at the time he came. So, but when he came, it was like a soothing balm for the at least for a broad spectrum of the American people. However, they had to bring a Joe Biden, a veteran on international affairs, to help steady. And I think Mr. Salas pointed out that dynamics too with Emmanuel Macron. Even though the wife is not a government, I don't know if the wife is a government person, but at least at some level, there's some level of wisdom that should and experience that should bring to bear when, you know. So I think it's how the tempo of the country will determine the kind of person that assumes leadership at a particular time. Having said that, for the former president, military president, to have said that there is no better person to have brought up this issue. There are few Nigerians that are as experienced as he is, that understand the dynamics of Nigeria. And so perhaps he would have reflected, considering the complexity of Nigeria and how tasking it can be to manage a country like this, and gone for somebody in his 60s. Perhaps on the assumption that by 60 years, whoever is 60 years must have built competence, must have built a robust network across the country at 60, must have built good political network, must have built financial capacity. Because the three major things facing Nigeria today, unfortunately, the incumbents ran on that, and that couldn't be, you know. We still have the problem of corruption. We still have the problem of financial distress, and we have enormous security crisis. So whoever is coming now has to be somebody who will be able to work 24/7. And I think that is where the concept of a young man comes in. Because no matter how experienced you are, there are times with the kind of situation we are getting into, there are times you'll be needed to be awake, perhaps for longer than necessary. And so it requires a young person. However, with all of these capacities to assume leadership of Nigeria.
Well, you spoke about perhaps the idea of having this concept of age when it comes to who the next presidential. And you see, it is assumed that somebody within the 60s, somebody at 60 has this kind of stamina. Chibuzo is saying that it requires that he walks 247.
Well, that is where the confusion comes from. Because talking about issue of age, I have a news source. He's he's above 70. And this man on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and most of the social media platform that I've been communicating with, he has been effective. And he will type and without errors. In fact, if I want a comment in the night, I don't always call him on phone, because if I call him on phone, I will have to record, transcribe before sending it to the office, and it takes time. So all I need to do, I will send him some questions either on WhatsApp, then call him and say, sir, I sent some questions to you. And within 5 minutes, he will send a lengthy write-up with proper, arrangement of how things should be. This is somebody who is above 70, and is somebody, if you can call in the night, in the morning, at any moment through the social media platform, and he will reply you. This is someone who is old, but in the mind he is young. So talking about issue of 60, 70, or either you are old or either you are young, I think it should not be the issue. Just like Mr. Silas said earlier, it should be about capacity. It should be about capacity. Our problem has been leadership capacity crisis, because some people, either the media give them some kind of status that people respect so much, and they think that if this person comes in, he will be able to change the narration. Or some group of people, have, decided that this man is good to be a leader. But looking at the way things are now, even if maybe if you are in your 20s, you can be able to do certain things. If you are 60, you may not be able to do those things. And some people, things that they were unable to do at 20s, because of the learning processes of leadership, if they are 50 or 60, they will be able to do them even better. So talking about age, I think we should look at just like Chibuzo also said, he did mention something that I think is very vital, that the situation on ground. We should look at the person who will be able to solve the situation on ground. And whether the person is old or young, it just depends on the leadership qualities of that person. Who is the person bringing on board to help him? Because the president will not be everywhere. Now, if you appoint, for example, an FCT minister, that FCT minister should see himself as the president of FCT and do what is right, just like the president would do for the entire country. But the problem is that if they appoint somebody in position of leadership, the person will not even be close to that person that appointed him. He will be looking at, they used to say, body language. You understand? He will not go into discussion with that person. These are the problem or the challenges I'm encountering on this issue. We need to take this kind of decision to get it right. No, they will be waiting for the body language of the president. And while waiting for the body language, you know how our system works. Then things will keep deteriorating. So I think that it should not be about age, but it should be about capacity. Somebody who have, made up his mind. And one thing is that our leadership recruitment, most people who are aspiring for the position of leadership, even people who have made it in life, they still think about amassing wealth. That should not be the focus. In 2023, if we can get a president that will ensure that he tackled this issue of distrust, the person tackled this issue of insecurity, the person, see how he can provide an enabling environment for businesses to take place, I think we will get it right. The problem we are having today is that something will start. For example, this issue of Boko Haram, when it started, the government thinks that, they are just operating in a small state, having a small network. When the banditry started, they said, no, they are just a small network. And some people will think, okay, they are killing in Zamfara. It does not concern me. They are killing in Plateau. They are killing in Southern Kaduna. It does not concern me. And the leaders, they will not investigate and understand what is happening. But because they would think, oh, that place, they have a history of crisis. The crisis that happened in the 90s is quite different with the crisis that may happen in 2021. So we don't, our leadership, they don't really go into research, they don't go into detailed investigation, and they don't carry people that will, give them the accurate or the needed support for them to deliver on their mandate. But because of nepotism, because of people they know, they just take decisions that are detrimental to the country. So what I want to say clearly is that our constitution have already, made it discriminatory when it comes to leadership recruitment. Just like I said the other time, if you are 18 years, you have right to vote, but you don't have the right to be voted as a president. Why?
Well, thank you, Sua. All of you, before we continue, let's just quickly take a short break. We'll be back in a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Viewer, welcome back to Leadership Podcast. And this is the big issue. And of course, the issue at stake is, should age be a factor in electing Nigeria's next president? And of course, what we have been probing in the studio here is, what has age got to do with it? Leadership. And of course, just like those who are now presenting certain persons in their 60s, say from their experts' point of view, these persons have the skills and competence to lead the country towards actualizing its much talked about potential, as well as address the socio-economic problems of the country. Now, does it mean that if these persons who were in the position of leadership clock 70, they will lose all those qualities that they had that made them good leaders when they were in their 60? Doing this to YouTube, it's like you are thinking towards this IBB's position.
Yes, I think because it's a here or there kind of debate. Both sides of the of the debates have points.
Sure.
But I lean more towards what IBB is recommending because we can't have it the way we used to. We need a very energetic president at this time. Cannot be underestimated or cannot be emphasized. A very energetic president, because the kind of crisis we face is one that would require a lot of mental activity and a lot of physical activity. Yes, for somebody in his 70s, he could do a lot of mental work, but we are at the point where the president has to show up. He has to show up at every point. And when IBB makes reference to he has friends everywhere, he was making okay, let me assume he was making reference to the ability of that individual to move, to transverse the country, not just because of campaigns, not just during campaigns, but outside for governance purposes. He should be able to visit, the nooks and crannies of this country. Well, it will be difficult. Okay. It will be difficult for somebody in his 70s, whether we like it or not. You see, flying from one place to the other is not easy for a man in his 70s, whether we like it or not. Even for a man in his 60s, it is equally going to be taxing.
I'm saying that our own president,
Who has
in
been
his
flying?
70s,
Well,
is
I
not
didn't make
really-
I didn't make reference to, well, let's do the statistics and see how well and how far he travels. That's an issue. That's a different matter. But all I'm saying is that the energy level of a 60-year-old cannot be compared to the energy level of a 70-year-old.
70s.
The energy level of a 70-year-old cannot be compared to that of a 50-year-old. But again, I still make reference to the fact that every society should be able to evolve the kind of leadership it wants at time.
Well, thank you very much. And just like Silas rightly said, Silas made references to other developed countries like the United States, where the current incumbent president is above 70, Joe Biden. And of course, to corroborate what Silas said, even in Africa, most of the African leaders and most of those that have led countries in on the continent, we are above 70s. I think we have the list here. Let's look at Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She became president of Liberia at the age of 70 in 2006. She was 75 in 2011. And she remained president till 2016 at the age of 80 years. President Jacob Zuma of South Africa was 77 years as president. Nelson Mandela, born in 1918, became president of South Africa in 1994 at the age of 76 till 1998 when he stepped down for Thabo Mbeki at the age of 80. And if he had served through them, he would have been 84. President Peter Mutharika of Malawi was 74. He was sworn in on 31 May 2014 and was president till 2019 at 79. President Paul Biya of Cameroon is 88 years now as I'm talking to you. Just to mention a few. Let's look at it. Are we saying that all these persons, these leaders who made it to the number one position of their country did not lead their country well? If you like, Silas, we can include our own incumbent president. He's 70s.
Yes. If you look at some of them, like Pia started far before now, but he's still there now. This argument, like Cho says, you have to, both sides of the coin have their own selling points.
Yeah.
Okay. But no one side fits up. But Bia has been there for almost 40 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's still presidents. If you look at the country, you may find out that the country has not really progressed so much because it's not allowing a free contest, so that fresh ideas can come on board. Okay. The young man that managed Nigeria's biggest crisis, go on, was 31 when he came on board. And he gathered Nigeria through a very difficult civil war. And the way he managed it, such a way that the war did not damage Nigeria the way it could have been. Maybe someone could have, another person could have mismanaged it in such a way that, that war could have doomed Nigeria forever. But somehow he managed it with his maturity at that point, and Nigeria came back together to forge ahead. It's just that those who took over from him possibly did not really. See, they didn't mention Wade of Senegal. He came to power at 89. The people saw in him leadership quality that desired and wanted from him at 89. Okay, so, and even when you spoke about Joe Biden, took over from a Trump that was even older than him, and still angry to come back. He has to feel like he has unfinished business. Okay, so why I'm saying this is that I mentioned more than 31. The best man that when we were growing up, we were all idolizing there, Thomas Sankara. He was 29 was there about. They had such revolutionary ideas that if had been allowed to implement them in this country, it would have been a very wonderful place. So it's not just about age. Sometimes it's about your capacity, like you said, your competence, your self-development. When I talk about vibrancy, it's more in city so vibrant. Why not talk about 50? In Nigeria, we saw how Donald Duke, a young man in his 30s or early 40s, the kind of visionary ideas he brought on board in crossover state.
I think,
Yes,
let me just chip in some. I think the concept of 60 is like a middle ground. You understand?
Not that IBB was specifying that
Not
it
so
must be
old,
within that age limit.
Not so old,
Not
so young. You understand? I think that was the
So
that
are
was
you
the
saying
concept.
he was suggesting that young people should not be allowed to?
And it's
No,
even
but it's about the nature of the country.
It did so, and of course, what you just said now is so. I think
It's about
it
the
is
nature of the
what
country.
we are beginning to have there on the screen now.
Yeah.
I think we'll seek some comment now.
Yes.
We have Elvis Jupan, who has just thrown in his comment here. He said, "What makes you think that youths are ready to take over? How long did it take for NSAS to fizzle out? We want to take over. Meanwhile, on election day, we'll be playing football. I beg you." Can you imagine?
if you respond to
I
that,
think what Elvis, of course, we also have another comment there from this one is from Ufot Water. Age has nothing to do with becoming the next president of Nigeria. See what Nigerians are saying.
you know, see, I was trying to land there. The issue, impossible that Boris Bangla is speaking from looking at the constitution where you have an old a president that was advanced and it's always going on medical trips and all that. Okay, it's not. It's true that people when they get older, they seem to suffer more from some genetic diseases and go on. So, but you used to have young people who also have one issue, sickness or the other.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to disease or illness, you know, some are with age, some are
Energy
natural.
level. Energy level.
Energy level too. Let me tell you something.
Energy level.
Well,
The job of
let me
a
tell you.
president. The job of a president
Let me tell you
is a
something.
full-time job.
Let me tell you.
But you guys, you hear what Isuwa said?
Yes.
A 70-year-old
See Obasanjo.
man sit down even in the middle of
See
night.
Obasanjo.
He's not president
At an
yet.
unholy
Well,
hour of the night.
The man is not president yet.
An old man will be there playing.
No, see,
He's not
Obasanjo,
president.
for instance,
He's not president yet.
see, Buhari's issue is not because of age. He's very active. Just that it is his nature to be a bit reclusive and this and that. It's not because he can't go anywhere he wants to go. If you see him, he's like a soldier. And he's
But
making,
he quoted
but
him here,
the
man.
issue-
He said because of my age, I will not be able to do
what
what
you
was
have
the president
done. He
said.
said how much you have done.
He said it.
You know,
That he can't move at the
Yeah,
pace he
but
would
it's not
have wanted
because
to move.
but it's not
because
because
of his age.
the issues of having Nigeria, issues of insecurity.
Yes.
He doesn't need to go to the war front. It's a question of his focus.
But he needs to be on
Listen,
call.
listen. He you know, he doesn't. He what did he do? Obasanjo when he was there, was already had the title. He was.
That
What he did
reminds
was
me-
he
that
applied.
reminds me.
Look,
Sorry, Silas.
he employed young people in his government.
Yes.
How old was
Sorry,
Obasanjo?
Silas.
Was
Is
it
the
his,
president, is the president back?
Was closer to 70 that time.
Yes.
Is the president
Yes.
back to the country from the medical checkup?
I don't think so.
He has not been back yet.
But you can look on it.
Remember-
One former I told you on convention told us that the president can run from anywhere. But that's the vice president who can step in if he's not there. But the point I want to make is that if they are looking at our president now and using it to say we can't have somebody above 17, I don't think Barry the problem with Barry is not about age, it's about his mindset. What we need in Nigeria is somebody who puts Nigeria ahead of every other interest, whether you are 20 years or 100 years. The problem we have had is that those leaders we bring it on board, you know, they always have other agendas that is not national interest first.
Absolutely.
If you can get anybody that puts Nigeria ahead of other interests, then we are good. But it's not about age.
Yes, it is not only IBB that has factored age into the criteria for becoming a president. I think it started when some group of youths came out protesting age as barrier in the constitution to hold political offices. And of course, they ask questions like, when will the tomorrow that the elders promise us come? You are leaders of tomorrow. You understand? So the inability to provide answers to this question is what led to this not too young to run campaign, which eventually took the form of a bill. You understand? So at the end of the day, the not too young to run initiative intended to break the elderly hegemony of political space in Nigeria. So now, Nigeria's democracy, according to them, required a younger person. And of course, most of the argument against these youngsters was that now, we're talking of age, that they should bring down the age constitutionally so that you be given the opportunity to hold political offices. Then most people arguing against it said, where is the experience? And of course, they cited certain governors who came into office at a younger age. Of course, I won't mention people. They said they should go to their state and see how they're operating.
You see?
And then
Even the other ones too.
Yes.
So what did they do?
IBB brought the issue of age on the wrong side of age. Let's look at age now at the early side of age.
Before 60.
Yes, because you spoke about Gowon. So Gowon became president at the age
31.
of 31. And of course, he was able to manage the country at a very critical stage where a very serious crisis,
I think,
like the civil war.
on
So, what do you think? If we now decide to say, okay, even the 60s, we won't accept. Even the balance that.
bringing
Let's take it down to just let the younger ones take over, just like Gowon became president.
bringing
Do you think this country will move forward?
bringing issue of age, I think to some people is a political strategy. It's just a way of making sure that they have a say in the political recruitment. For example, Governor Nasir El-Rufai was quoted to have said that Kaduna needs a governor that is not up to 60 and all that. And why is he saying that? You understand? Because we have seen him, even him, is within that age bracket. And if you can be governor, why are you saying that the state don't need somebody who is up to that age? So it's about political interest. Maybe these leaders are projecting some people, into these offices. And that is why they will be bringing in this kind of statement, yes, to make sure that they age out some other people. So
Thank you very much.
It's just
Thank you very much. So,
political-
let's see. Sorry, before you go, we have another. One of our viewers there is now commenting. We have Muhammad Musa Bazar. See what Bazar has to say. It's only in Nigeria that the retirement age is 60. And you can contest for president at the age of 80.
See what we're talking about.
Yeah. So
Okay,
you know, as a civil servant, you retired at that particular age when you are just managing an office, but you contest to be a senator that you manage maybe a whole nation or a president or senatorial state. Yes. So it is ironical. That was why I always say that
like even
our constitution. Yes, our constitution.
The point
and
Bazar
the
is there is
electoral act is
it makes it look how hypocritical.
Yes.
We are.
Of course, now, if not for we are not hypocritical.
Retirement age is 80. And then when it comes to politics, we allow people who are both.
You vote at 18, but you can't be voted for some office.
It buys into it buys into what perhaps the former military president is trying to point out. But
So before you make that point,
yes, sir.
let's quickly take one of our viewers again. Which Adebisin Abiodun Abacha. Abacha is saying the young aspirant politicians lack structures and the money, both of which remain strong factors in deciding politics in Nigeria. That is another point he raised.
Well, I don't think.
But before we go, let's go to finish.
Yes, I just needed to just chip in something. If you look to some of the revolutionary ideas we've had over time, come from people who are young, and because they have a lot of fire and a lot of vibrancy, it helps to drive, whatever thing they intend to do for their people. Look at the glory years of the United States. You can see the age range, from the 44s and the 40-somethings.
He said 40,
Yes,
not 60.
40. No. The concept of 60, like I said earlier, perhaps for the president is we need, because of the peculiarity of Nigeria, we do not need the person that is so young, yet we do not need somebody that is so old. We need somebody within that age bracket that would have afforded an opportunity to build political networks because of the complexity of Nigeria. I think
When
that's
Abiola won the president in 1990, how old was he? Was 50 something. As I had followed him in every nook and cranny of Nigeria. And it was not 60, it was in his early 50s or mid 50s.
Confirming what IBB say, such a person should be able to build.
And he did all this thing before he got to 60. It was in the early 50s. You understand? So what I'm saying that
If it is younger, fine.
I'm telling you, even
It's
younger.
fine.
I'm sorry to say that whether it's younger or older,
Yes.
it should be about what? capacity.
No, of course.
And the capacity in Nigeria is not just book capacity,
That's a given.
the maturity
The maturity.
to carry everybody, understand the complexity of Nigeria and the what? The drive,
Yes,
the,
yes,
the vision to achieve something for the country.
I think most
That-
Nigerians
that
are still
maturity
giving a
is
plus to IBB's regime because they say he was one of the best presidents, despite the fact that there are certain indices using judging him.
Oh,
and
I
at the
believe.
end,
Yes, now, if not for the election in council, he would have
Mm.
been one of the greatest
one of
presidents
the
in Nigeria.
yes. Well,
But you know that military regime
uh,
is always not a regime that you can
If you see-
lay claim that is legitimate.
but even though it
Military
was
regime is
illegitimate,
always illegitimate.
we are not judging it from the
it has
legit,
impact.
from the legal,
It made its impact in
aspect. The
Nigeria.
legitimacy is not what we are talking here. We are talking of what the leader did
With the
Looking
power
at
he
it,
has.
Yeah, compared to the civilian governments that we've had of recent. Although we trash that out in the lab when we dealt holistically with IBB's interview last week. But I think for now, our time is almost off, and of course, it is time we begin to look at what most of our viewers have seen here. Somebody has just pasted something. He say you want to be president. You say retirement age is 60, then you want to be president at 80. Does this add up? Because naturally, if from the civil service, work is work. Even as the office of the president, it's a public office.
And double work.
So why didn't we apply?
Well, if you
why don't we apply
look at
private
even
age,
now, they even extended the retirement age of professors,
Mm.
set categories of health workers to 70
Mm.
because they don't want to waste the experience they've gathered and throw them away. They want them to still contribute to the system. So professors now retire at 70. So it doesn't mean that someone who is 70 cannot add value. There are
Of
70
course.
people, those that are 70 that are more vibrant, more visionary than those who are 50. So it depends on the individual. Give us something. Let's look at our environment and look at something that can tackle what we are facing now. Not just
The person, for me, personally, that the person has to be young.
Well,
That's the part I'm chipping.
okay, viewer, that's the much we can take for today's
Can be young.
edition
Is
of
this a young?
This is fairly young.
that's the much we can take for today's edition of the big issue. And of course, don't forget, it is something you can still interrogate within you. What has age got to do with it? It is not only about who becomes the next president. Even in leading the family, what has age got to do with it? And perhaps you could even apply this in the other room. What has age got to do with it? In every sphere of life, what has age got to do with it? Of course, thank you for being part of this big issue program. And I won't fail to say a big thank you to our in-house analysts who have been able to address the issue the way they are. For now, it is goodbye. Join us sometime tomorrow for another edition of the big issue. Thank you.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.